The deed notification popped up on my laptop screen as I reviewed witness testimony in my hotel room. Property transfer complete, 1428 Oakwood Drive, Alexandria, Virginia. My coffee mug froze halfway to my lips. The room temperature seemed to plummet as my eyes registered my home address, my safe house, under a transfer notification I never authorized. My throat constricted as I clicked to expand the document, revealing my parents' signatures where mine should have been, a power of attorney stamp I'd forgotten existed, and a sale price that was a third of the property's value. The timestamp showed the transaction had completed 3 hours ago. 3 hours during which Angela Moretti and her children, the witnesses I was responsible for protecting from the Castellano crime family, had been living in a house that legally belonged to someone else. My name is Olivia, I'm 34 and a deputy U.S. Marshal. This is the story of how I learned that justice matters more than blood. My phone vibrated with a message from my mother. Finally did something about that house of yours. You're welcome. The money will help your sister with her wedding. Call me when you get back from your business trip. The condescension in those quotation marks made my stomach turn. I immediately dialed my supervisor, Deputy Chief Nicholas Crawford. He answered on the third ring. Crawford. Sir, we have a critical security breach. My family just sold the Alexandria safe house. My voice sounded unnaturally steady despite the adrenaline coursing through me. The silence that followed lasted precisely 4 seconds. Your house? The Moretti safe house. His voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. Yes, sir. My parents used an old military deployment power of attorney I never revoked. They sold it this morning for $850,000 cash. Jesus Christ. Another pause. Who bought it? I don't know yet, but that price is less than a third of market value. This wasn't a random sale. Crawford's breathing changed, the way it always did when an operation went sideways. Get back to DC immediately. I'm activating the emergency response team. We need to extract the Morettis now. I immediately packed my things and caught the next flight to DC, leaving the conference I'd been attending in Chicago. By the time my plane landed at Reagan National 3 hours later, my phone had 17 messages from my mother, all variations on the theme of my ungratefulness and how I was ruining my sister Vanessa's wedding. I drove straight to headquarters where Crawford waited in the secure conference room with our legal team. Legal counsel Patricia Wilson was already pulling up property records on her laptop. The buyer is Riverside Holdings LLC, she said, her voice clinically precise. Shell company registered in Delaware last month. Multiple layers of protection hiding the actual owners. She looked up at me with sharp eyes. This wasn't a normal real estate transaction. Crawford's jaw tightened. You're saying someone targeted that specific property? Wilson nodded. Someone paid cash at below market value for a house that happens to be sheltering our primary witness against the Castellano crime family. The realization hit me like a physical blow. My parents hadn't just betrayed my trust, they'd potentially compromised a federal witness protection operation. We need to move the Morettis immediately, Crawford ordered, standing abruptly. Olivia, you're coming with me. Wilson, dig deeper into Riverside Holdings. We drove directly to the Alexandria safe house, arriving 20 minutes later. The protection detail, Marshals Rodriguez and Phillips, met us at the perimeter, confusion evident in their stance. Sir? Rodriguez questioned, hand instinctively moving toward her weapon as she registered the number of agents approaching. The house was sold, Crawford said flatly. Without authorization. We're evacuating now. Inside, Angela Moretti looked up from the kitchen table where she sat with her 8-year-old daughter and 6-year-old son. Their half-eaten sandwiches formed a tableau of interrupted normalcy. Angela's face drained of color when she saw us. Did they find us? She whispered, her hand instinctively reaching for her children. No, Crawford said. But we are moving you as a precaution. 10 minutes to pack essentials. As Rodriguez helped the Morettis gather their belongings, Crawford's phone buzzed. He checked it, his expression hardening as he motioned me aside. He turned the screen toward me. It showed 2 men exiting a black SUV. One I didn't recognize. The other was Vincent Castellano Jr., son of the mob boss Angela was testifying against. Riverside Holdings, Crawford said quietly. Shell company owned by the Castellano family. They bought your house. They knew it was a safe house. My blood went cold. How? We're investigating. But they paid cash below market value to make it attractive for a quick sale. Your parents' greed made them easy targets. How are we getting these images? I asked, looking at the surveillance feed on Crawford's phone. Standard protocol, he replied. Once we evacuated, I had the tactical team establish covert surveillance around the perimeter. They are transmitting real-time footage to our secure server. As we successfully evacuated the Morettis to a secure facility, Crawford made another decision. Your parents, where are they now? Family reunion at my uncle's farm in Pennsylvania. They're expecting me tomorrow. Change of plans. We're going today. After securing the Morettis, we drove the 2 hours to my uncle's farm in Pennsylvania. We arrived as the annual family reunion was in full swing. Cars lined the gravel drive, children played in the yard, and the smell of barbecue hung in the air. My mother stood near the grill, laughing with my aunts. She spotted me and waved enthusiastically, until she registered the people with me. 6 federal officers in suits, all wearing visible badges. Her smile vanished. Olivia? What's going on? Her voice carried across the lawn, drawing attention. My father emerged from the house, beer in hand. My sister Vanessa appeared from around the corner, her fiancé Jason trailing behind her. Mom, Dad, I said, my voice carrying in the sudden quiet. We need to talk about the house. Oh, for heaven's sake, my mother rolled her eyes. Are you still upset about that? Thomas, she's brought her work friends to intimidate us. That house was a federal safe house, I interrupted, watching their expressions carefully. That house was being used by the U.S. Marshals Service to protect a witness and her children in an active organized crime investigation. The silence was absolute. My mother's face went white. What? The house in Alexandria that you sold without my permission wasn't just my personal property. It was registered as federal property being used for witness protection. My father set down his beer slowly. That's impossible. You work in office administration. I'm a deputy U.S. Marshal. I have been for 4 years. That house was purchased specifically for its security features and has been sheltering a protected witness for 18 months. Crawford stepped forward, holding up his badge. Deputy Chief Marshal Nicholas Crawford. Mr. and Mrs. Reynolds, you've sold federal property without authorization. More critically, you've potentially compromised an active witness protection case. My mother grabbed my father's arm. We didn't know. Olivia never told us. I couldn't tell you. Operational security means I don't discuss active cases or safe house locations with anyone outside the service. But you should have asked me before selling my property. We had power of attorney, my father insisted, his voice rising defensively. That power of attorney was for emergencies during my military deployment 6 years ago. It was never meant to give you authority to sell my house. Vanessa pushed forward, her diamond engagement ring catching the sunlight. Mom and Dad were just trying to help with my wedding. They got me $400,000. Surely you're not upset about. Your wedding money came from an illegal sale of federal property, I said flatly. That money is going to be seized as proceeds from a crime. Crime? My father's voice went loud. Now wait just a minute. We didn't commit any crime. We sold your house that you never used. You're always traveling, always busy with work, never around for family. What were we supposed to think? You were supposed to think that selling someone else's property without their explicit permission is illegal. Federal property makes it worse. Wilson stepped forward. Mr. and Mrs. Reynolds, the house you sold was legally owned by your daughter, but registered as federal property for witness protection purposes. The sale without authorization violates 18 U.S.C. Section 1512, tampering with a witness. Additionally, because the sale was conducted using fraudulent authority. We weren't being fraudulent. My mother cried. You knew the power of attorney was outdated, Wilson continued calmly. And the fact that you sold significantly below market value to a shell company raises additional questions. Shell company? My father frowned. We sold it to a nice couple through a real estate agent. They paid cash. The buyers used a shell company called Riverside Holdings, I explained. Who introduced you to this agent? My mother's voice went defensive. She called us. Linda something. Said she'd heard we had property in Alexandria we might want to sell. How did she hear that? Crawford asked sharply. My parents exchanged glances. I might have mentioned it at the country club, my mother admitted. I was talking about Vanessa's wedding expenses, and someone suggested we had assets we could liquidate. I mentioned you had that house you never used. Did this person who suggested liquidating assets have a name? Crawford pressed, his expression intense. I don't remember exactly, my mother said, frowning. An older gentleman who said he worked in real estate investments. He overheard our conversation at the bar and offered advice. Crawford's phone buzzed again. He checked it, then turned to me. Castellano's men were at the house 20 minutes after we evacuated. They had keys. The impact of this statement hit my parents visibly. My father's face went grey. You're saying we helped the mob? Unknowingly, Wilson said. But yes, you sold them direct access to a protected witness. Vanessa grabbed my arm. Olivia, we didn't know. You have to believe us. We would never. I pulled away. You would never ask before making major decisions about my property. You would never respect that I might have reasons for privacy. You would never consider that my work might be more important than you assumed. That's not fair. Vanessa's voice rose. You took my wedding money, didn't you? $400,000. For what? I asked. A bigger venue? A fancy dress. Mom and Dad offered. They said you owed us. You're never around, never involved in family stuff. They said this was your contribution. My contribution was buying a house that happened to save 3 lives, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. Angela Moretti and her 2 children are alive because they were in that safe house instead of their apartment when the Castellanos sent men to kill them. That was my contribution to something that actually mattered. The silence stretched across the lawn. In the distance, children still played, unaware of what was unfolding. Crawford's phone buzzed again. He answered, spoke briefly, then ended the call. Morettis are secure in a new location. The Alexandria house is being swept for surveillance devices, and we have a warrant. He nodded to the tactical agents who approached my parents. Mr. and Mrs. Reynolds, we have a warrant to seize all proceeds from the sale of the Alexandria property. That includes bank accounts, cash, and any assets purchased with those funds. My mother stumbled backward. You can't. That's our money. It's proceeds from the illegal sale of federal property, Wilson corrected. Additionally, you're both being charged with 18 U.S.C. Section 1512, witness tampering, and 18 U.S.C. Section 641, theft of government property. You'll need to come with us for formal processing. Olivia, my father turned to me, his face desperate. Olivia, stop this. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. Tell them we didn't mean any harm. I looked at him for a long moment. Dad, you sold a safe house to the mob. Whether you meant harm or not, you endangered 3 lives. I can't stop this. I wouldn't stop this if I could. We're your parents. My mother's voice cracked. And Angela Moretti is a mother with 2 children who watched her husband murdered by the Castellanos. Your actions almost got her killed too. So no, I'm not stopping this. My parents were taken into custody that evening. Vanessa's bank accounts were frozen. The $400,000 wedding fund seized as evidence. Her fiancé left 3 days later, claiming he needed time to think. The investigation into Riverside Holdings led to the arrest of 5 Castellano associates and exposed a network of corrupt real estate agents being used to identify federal properties. The mob had been systematically trying to locate safe houses across the eastern seaboard. My parents' carelessness had given them exactly what they wanted. Angela Moretti testified successfully against Vincent Castellano Sr., he's now serving life in federal prison. His son Vincent Jr. got 20 years for witness tampering and related charges. My parents faced trial 6 months later. They were convicted of witness tampering and theft of government property. Dad got 4 years federal prison. Mom got 3 years plus 2 years supervised release. The judge was clear, ignorance wasn't an excuse when their actions nearly cost 3 lives. Vanessa lost everything: her wedding fund, her venue deposit, her fiancé, her reputation. Last I heard, she'd moved to Oregon to start over. She and I haven't spoken since the day of our parents' arrest. She blamed me for destroying the family, but I noticed she never once expressed concern for Angela Moretti's family. The real estate agent, Linda Carson, was charged with conspiracy and is currently serving 5 years for her role in helping the Castellanos identify potential safe houses. The helpful gentleman at the country club was identified as one of the Castellanos' longtime associates. 6 months after my parents' conviction, I visited them once before they went to prison. They sat across from me in the federal holding facility, both wearing orange jumpsuits, both looking decades older than they had at the reunion. Olivia, my mother whispered, please, can't you do something? Talk to someone? Your father's health. Mom, I'm a deputy marshal. I can't interfere with a federal prosecution. You know that. But we're family. Family respects boundaries. Family asks permission. Family doesn't sell each other's houses to mobsters. My father's hands shook on the table. We didn't know they were mobsters. We didn't know it was a safe house. We didn't know any of it because you never told us what you really do. I couldn't tell you, and clearly I was right not to trust you with sensitive information. Look what you did with basic property ownership. So this is our punishment? My mother asked. Prison because we tried to help our daughter with her wedding? You tried to help yourselves to money that wasn't yours, I corrected. Angela Moretti is alive because we evacuated her in time. If the Castellanos had gotten to her first, if she and her children had been killed, you'd be facing murder charges. 4 years in prison is getting off light. My father's face crumpled. When you get out, will you? Will I what? Forgive us. Welcome us back to family dinners. Pretend this never happened. You are my parents. Now you're federal inmates who compromised a witness protection case because you were too selfish and too careless to ask a simple question before selling my house. I stood up. I hope you use your time in prison to think about consequences. Real consequences, not just what happens to you, but what could have happened to 3 innocent people because of your actions. 2 years later, I received a letter from my mother. She'd been transferred to a minimum security facility in West Virginia. The letter was 8 pages of apologies, explanations, justifications. She missed me. She wanted to make things right. She'd learned her lesson. I read it once, then filed it with the case documents. Crawford found me in my office later that day. Heard your mother reached out. She wants reconciliation. He studied my face. You going to give it to her? I thought about Angela Moretti, who'd sent me a Christmas card with a photo of her children. They were smiling. They were alive. They were safe because I'd moved fast enough to get them out of that house. No, I said. I'm not. Family's important, Reynolds. So is doing your job right. So is protecting people who can't protect themselves. So is maintaining boundaries with people who've proven they can't be trusted. Crawford nodded slowly. Fair enough. For what it's worth, you handled this situation with more professionalism than I would have managed. It wasn't personal, sir. Wasn't it? I met his gaze. It was absolutely personal. But that doesn't change the fact that they broke federal law and endangered federal witnesses. Personal feelings don't override duty. No, he agreed. They don't. My parents were released from federal prison 18 months ago. Mom served her full sentence. Dad got out early for good behavior. They moved to Florida, away from the judgmental whispers of their Pennsylvania community. They've written periodically. Cards on my birthday. Emails on holidays. Each one asks for a chance to talk, to explain, to rebuild. I haven't responded to any of them. Maybe someday I will. Maybe someday enough time will pass that I can separate who they were from what they did. Maybe someday I'll be able to sit across from them without seeing Angela Moretti's terrified face when we evacuated the safe house. But not today. Today I have a job to do. Witnesses to protect. Cases to build. People who depend on the U.S. Marshals Service to keep them safe from those who want them dead. And I can't do that job if I'm wasting energy on family members who valued money more than they valued respecting my boundaries, my property, or the lives of 3 people they'd never met. So I keep working. I keep protecting witnesses. I keep maintaining the professional standards that my parents' actions nearly destroyed. Angela Moretti's children are alive. That matters more than my parents' feelings. It always will.